Good evening. I call this meeting of the Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The time is now 6 o'clock. Roll call.
All board members are present.
Now we'll have recognition of the students by Dr. Gibson.
Thank you, President Westbrook, trustees and guests and staff members. Tonight we're honored to have Diego Rosas, a fourth grader at Rose Garden Elementary, and Riley Novendomsky at Cibolo Valley Elementary to lead us in our pledges. Their principals, Ms. Slaughter and Ms. Stilley, are here joining them. We want to give them a round of applause right now and then welcome them. We're going to give a brief introduction for them, and then we'll stand for their pledges.
Good evening, members of the board, President Westbrook. How about that? Superintendent Dr. Gibson. I am Sherry Schlother, principal of Rose Garden Elementary, and I would like to introduce you to our student, Diego Rojas, who is in fourth grade. He is a member of our robotics club, ORF, and safety patrol. His favorite subject is math, and he enjoys working on his Legos, reading Percy Jackson books, and more math. He is joined by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Rojas, and Joaquin, who is in 7th grade at Corbett, and Grandpa.
Good evening, members of the board, President Westbrook and Superintendent Dr. Gibson. I'm Lucretia Stilley, and I'm the principal at Cibolo Valley Elementary, and I'd like to introduce to you Riley Novendomsky. Riley is in 3rd grade at Cibolo Valley. She's very sweet, respectful, and kind to others. Her favorite subject is science, and she enjoys playing outside. She's joined today by her parent, Joey Novendomsky, and Dad is Michael Novendomsky.
If you would please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to see as many people here tonight. Hope everybody had a great holidays and stayed warm It was unusual for us to have so much cold weather last year and last week, actually. I would like to start off by saying Church-Cibolo Universal City Independent School District has been named as a finalist for the HEB Excellence in Education Awards in the large school district category. I think this is the 2nd year in a row.
Well, last year we had a district staff member nominated and the school board nominated. So this year is for the entire district.
So I think we did a great job. I'd like to commend Dr. Gibson and his executive leadership team. I think it's a reflection on the staff, the students, and the parents, and the community, and I think we're doing a great job. Next, we would like to have...
And Ricky Davis won it last year for the teacher division, so we'll give Mr. Davis a round of applause.
Next, we will have the Vice President's recitation of the district mission, vision, and values statement.
Our vision is to prepare every student to be a productive citizen. Our values are leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning. Our mission is Church-Cibolo Universal City ISD provides a safe, secure, and challenging learning environment through the responsible use of all resources to afford opportunities for all students to realize their individual potential and to become responsible and productive members of society. Our priorities are high achievement for all students, high performing and engaging workforce, and effective and efficient district and campus operations.
Next, we will have the board recitation of the district belief statements.
We believe all students have the capacity to learn and be successful, and we believe a safe, secure environment is paramount to learning.
We believe living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning result in the ability to set and achieve lifelong goals. We believe quality instruction addresses the individual needs of students.
We believe engaging, interactive, and authentic teaching creates empowered and active learners prepared for our changing world. We believe embracing technology as a relevant tool enhances learning in and beyond the classroom.
We believe in a professional learning community culture that allows time to collaborate and share best practices in order to improve continually. We believe good communication is critical to success.
We believe lifelong learning enriches staff through professional development. We believe measures of our success go beyond standardized testing, and we believe public education is defined by the local community with limited state involvement.
Thank you, board members. Next, we will have the Vice President's overview of good governance indicators and board member ethics. Usually, I think over the last year, we've had several opportunities to present at a TASB conventions about good governance. And so in that light, I think we tried to get the Vice President more involved, and each regular scheduled board meeting from this point forward for the rest of this year, the Vice President will essentially go over sectors for the board.
We have a code of ethics, and there are 6 different ethical standards that the board follows. And then we also have, and so you can always find some of this on our local policy. But we're just going to highlight one each month from each of those. And so as members of the board, we shall promote the best interests of the district as a whole, and to that end shall adhere to the following ethical standards. Equity and attitude. I will be fair, just, and impartial in all my decisions and actions. I will accord others with the respect that I wish for myself, and I will encourage expressions of different opinions and listen with an open mind to others' ideas. That's one of our equity and attitude, our ethics. On our good governance, one of them is that the board has a code of ethics for itself and promotes ethical behavior in the governance structure throughout the organization and in interactions with the workforce, vendors, and stakeholders. And so the things the board has adopted and annually reaffirms an ethics statement, our code of conduct for board members. The board receives an annual report regarding code of ethics deployment for staff members in the organization. The board has a written process for dealing with breaches of ethical conduct, and the board agenda materials and minutes indicate that a code of ethics has been affirmed by all board members on a regular basis.
Want to add anything? Does any board member want to add anything? Nope. Thank you. Next, we will have the recognition of student representatives by Dr. Gibson.
Thank you, President Westbrook, and guests, community members, and administrators, and staff members. We're honored tonight to have Aaron Suarez, a 12th grader from Clemens High School, and Haley Parker, a 12th grader from Steele High School, as our student representatives from our 2 traditional high schools. So students, we're going to ask you to move down to the podium, and your administrators are here to introduce you, Ms. Gonzalez and Mr. Matthews.
Good evening, Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, and members of the board. It is my privilege to introduce Aaron Suarez, the Samuel Clemens High School Student of the Month. Aaron is representing the Cibolo Creek FFA. She is being accompanied today by her mother and father, Delana and Joey Suarez, her sister, Ashlyn, grandparents, Cheryl and Tom Maxwell, Frank Suarez, and Cheryl and Dan Schillings, as well as her great-grandmother, Lorraine Schwartzbach. If you could please stand and be recognized at this time, family. A special thanks is also in order for Raven Crawford and Corey Heath, the FFA advisors, for being here tonight to support Aaron and for their leadership and guidance of our FFA program. Advisors, if you could please stand and be recognized. Erin is a senior who has grown up in the SCUC ISD schools since kindergarten. Over the past 4 years at Clemens, she has been involved in numerous clubs and organizations inside and outside of school, including FFA, National Honor Society, DECA, and the Gifted and Talented program. Erin has been heavily involved in FFA, competing on state achieving teams and raising animals at our district agriculture facility. This year, Erin has had the honor of serving as chapter president. Upon graduation, Erin plans to attend Texas Tech University and hopes to earn a dual degree in agriculture and applied economics and business administration, also while earning her teaching certification. Erin is a remarkable young woman with a strong sense of purpose, and it is my honor to present to you our Samuel Clemens High School Student of the Month, Erin Suarez.
Thank you, Mrs. Gonzalez. Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, and members of the school board. My name is Erin Suarez, and I am currently a senior at Samuel Clemens High School. Having been heavily involved in a multitude of organizations at Clemens, I have gained skills I never imagined and formed relationships I couldn't have dreamed of when I began as a freshman. I am ranked in the top quarter of my class and will be graduating magna cum laude at the end of the year. But while I am proud of my academic accomplishments, I am even more proud of what I have accomplished within the organizations I have been involved with. As Mrs. Gonzalez mentioned earlier, I have been a part of the Gifted and Talented program for 7 years now, NHS, DECA, and FFA, where I have served as an officer for the past 3 years and am currently serving as the chapter president. Throughout my time in each of these, I have learned valuable lessons, but most of my time has been devoted to the FFA. The FFA is a national student-led organization that reaches from the state of Alaska to the Virgin Islands, and from the state of Maine to Hawaii. These words are included in the opening ceremonies of the FFA, which is recited by thousands of members across the United States. Texas is home to the largest FFA state association with over 100,000 active members and more than 1,000 chapters. The time I've spent in FFA around the diverse set of members has shaped me into the person I am today. I have become a better public speaker than I ever thought possible and have become the leader I always dreamed of being. I've traveled the state while competing at contests and also touring different universities, which ultimately helped me choose where I will further my education. And while all of this has occurred, I've created relationships I will cherish forever with fellow students as far as Lubbock and as close as East Central. The FFA has inspired me and given me something to be passionate about. My ag teachers and the families I have raised with have become my family and will continue to be so for the years to come. Of course, I can't forget to give the people who make all of this happen a big thank you. Miss Crawford and Mrs. Heath have been there for me since my sophomore year. It hasn't always been the easiest because we've gone through teachers, and while that may be challenging, they make the best of every situation. We always have. They've been there for me through absolutely anything and have helped me overcome so many obstacles that I can't even begin to talk about. I will never forget what they have taught me, and I can't wait to see what they do in the future with this chapter. My time at Samuel Clemens is coming to an end, and as I look back, I am able to think of some of the great things I was able to accomplish. My freshman year, I received a scholarship at the Houston Rodeo, which was the first of many. My sophomore year, I put together a series of dodgeball tournaments to help raise money for a third grader in need of a service dog. And since then, I have been involved with numerous state teams that have placed in the top 10 at state contests every single year. I've also raised a combined amount of 12 animals in my 4 years. Another great accomplishment that I'm proud of is the work I have done every year for 6 years now downtown, running the Feast of Sharing with my grandpa. We run the food section, and this past year, he finally handed me the reins, and I ran the food section where we served over 10,000 meals in 6 hours. I have loved every memory made thanks to this awesome administration at Clemens that is always supporting us in everything we do. These organizations have taught me the importance of having a servant's heart and using it to the best of my abilities as a leader. In the coming year, I will begin attending Texas Tech University to receive a dual degree in agricultural and applied economics and business administration. While I'm not entirely sure what I want to do after college, I know that if I keep a clear head and a full heart, I will always be able to do anything I set my mind to. I'm grateful for this amazing opportunity to share my experiences as a Buffalo and as a lifelong SCUC student. I've truly been taught how to be the one wherever I go. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.
right. Good evening, Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, and members of the board. I have the pleasure this evening of introducing Steele's Student Representative of the Month, Haley Parker. Haley is a senior at Steele High School. She is the daughter of Seth and Stephanie Parker. I know Seth is here tonight, if you want to stand and be recognized. She is also joined here tonight by her sponsor in UIL Academics, Miss Lisa Magnuson. All right, Haley is actively involved in journalism and the ROTC for all 4 years at Steele High School. In journalism, she holds a leadership position in Yearbook, currently as editor-in-chief, which I found out today is kind of a big deal because she's a solo editor-in-chief of a yearbook, and apparently that doesn't happen very often, so big kudos. She's managing a staff of 15 to produce a 300-page book this year. Haley also competes on the UIL academic team and advanced last year as a regional qualifier after winning first place at the district meet in the headline event. In ROTC, Haley serves as a flight commander, making her responsible for 38 first-year cadets. She also serves as the academic team commander and traveled to Washington, D.C. last summer for competition, finishing in the top 1% of all ROTC teams out of 850 teams, receiving an award from General Colin Powell. After graduating from Steele, Haley will attend University of Texas in the fall of 2018, majoring in advertising. She was awarded automatic acceptance by maintaining a GPA in the top 7% of her graduating class. Without further ado, Haley Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews, for that introduction. And before I begin, I'd also like to thank the school board for hosting the student representatives here tonight and allowing us to really show our appreciation for our school programs. I'd like to start out by talking about my freshman year of high school, which was actually really boring. I took my required courses, the ones I wanted to get out of the way and not take by my senior year, and I only took one elective. And to be frank, I only took that elective for the PE credit. But quickly I learned that without extracurricular activities, high school was going to be really boring. I needed something that was going to push me outside of the classroom, something that I was passionate about. So after my freshman year, I was really dedicated to finding that. I joined Yearbook my sophomore year, and very quickly it took over my life. I can go on and on and on about how much I love the Yearbook program, but really what's more important tonight is what the Yearbook program has opened up to me, which is UIL journalism. I started UIL academics with no earthly idea of what I was doing. I went to my first invitational meet with only a basic idea of what the judges were looking for in my events, but I left that day placing in third place in headline writing. And after that, I kind of decided that UIL wasn't going to be too bad if I can place. But the meetings after that got me really working. I wanted to do well in all of the journalism events, so I started practicing. I would write story after story after story using the UIL prompts to perfect my AP style writing. And after all of that practice, I really fine-tuned my writing skills. I realized that I was really becoming college ready. I'm so confident when I'm writing essays and assignments in school, and I felt really confident writing my college essay as well to apply to the University of Texas in Austin. So Yearbook is more of a visual side of journalism. It's the photo and it's the design. But UIL allows me to practice my more newspaper side of journalism, the writing and the quotes and the interviews. It's really prepared me for my future in communications, and more than most other school-related subjects. So I will be attending the University of Texas in Austin in the fall of 2018, majoring in advertising. And UIL has definitely been a big factor in helping me make that decision. But not only has UIL helped me make that decision, but it's also given me the confidence and self-esteem that I have today. I've been able to strengthen relationships with people who enjoy competing in the same events as I do. And I've even earned my letterman through UIL, just doing what I love to do. So I have a lot to thank the program for, including those who support the program. But most of all, I'd like to thank Mrs. Reed, who was unable to make it tonight. She's my she's my journalism sponsor. But she introduced me to the program, and she also has supported me through the way. And I'd like to thank Ms. Maggs as well for keeping the program going. Thank you.
Before we continue, I made a slight oversight. We have the members of Communities in School present. Would you stand? If you don't mind, coming to the dais and, well, coming to the microphone and giving your name and who you work for. It's Mentorship Month.
Yes, it is. And I've got my mentors following me here. I'm Sonia Chapa, and I am the mentor coordinator for Communities in Schools of South Central Texas. So I assist in placing the site coordinators on the campuses for SCUC. So these are some of the mentors that we've got that join our campuses and work with the students on the campus. It is National Mentoring Month, and that really affects students. 55% less likely to skip school, 78% more likely to hold a leadership role in a volunteer organization. Just so many wonderful things that happen with coming with the mentor. And just as each one of us has experienced having a positive role model in our life, that's what these folks do on a regular basis when they visit with the students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to have everybody introduce themselves.
I'm Angela Green. I'm the school liaison at Joint Base Randolph, but I'm also a mentor, and I don't just mentor them. They mentor me also. I get a lot from them as well.
Great job.
Hi, I'm Barbara Ricks, and I mentor at a couple of campuses. I see a couple of children at Watts Elementary, and then also see a child at Rose Garden. So, and I enjoy it, that interaction with the children. Thanks.
Yes.
I'm Cheryl Rosenberg, and I'm just starting my second year mentoring at Watts Elementary.
Great job.
Hi, David Ricker. I work for Communities in Schools, but I've also been a mentor for about 10 years.
Awesome.
And I'm Joanna Wold. I am one of the Communities in Schools site coordinators at Rose Garden. And we are blessed with many mentors. We have the fire department of UC, which is about 14 mentors, and then we have equally about 14 from our community. So we are blessed with many mentors.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Next, we will have public comments.
No, principal recognition.
Oh, principal recognition.
Che and Goldhorn.
Good evening, members of the board, President Westbrook, and Superintendent Dr. Gibson. As Director of Elementary Education Services, I will be introducing to you our 4 principals that will be representing us this evening. First, I would like to begin with Ms. Lucretia Steele. She is a principal at Cibolo Valley Elementary, so if you'll please come forward over here. Mrs. Steele has served in education for the last 23 years, and a fun fact about Lucretia is that she always played school when she was a child and vowed that she would never be a teacher. But she worked as a receptionist for 3 months and left to become an aide at an elementary school, and here we are, 23 years later. So thank you, Lucretia. Our next principal is Sherry Schlother. She is a principal at Rose Garden Elementary. She has served in education for 26 years. So Sherry, come on down. A fun fact about Sherry is she is the 3rd generation of 4 generations of the Schlother family of educators in SCUC ISD. Our next principals are in secondary. We have Stacy Cerna, who is principal of our Discipline Alternative Center. Cerna? Ms. Cerna? She has served in education for 21 years. And a fun fact about Miss Stacy is that she loves camping. We also have Jeremy Matthews. He is the associate principal at Byron Still High School. Jeremy has served in education for 18 years, and a fun fact about Jeremy is he is the first in his family to obtain a college degree. So these are our principals.
You don't have to shake hands, Jeremy. But you can. Yeah, but you can. The kids divide themselves up.
The superintendent.
There you go, Sherry. Good job. Thanks
Great
for
job.
being here tonight. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Now we're good.
Now it's time for public comments. The Board of Trustees will now hear public comments. In order to provide consistency and fairness to all individuals, public comments will be heard in accordance with the Board Policy BED Local and procedures outlined in the Administrative Regulation BED. Comments should be limited to topics such as policies, curriculum, and facilities. Any direct criticism of a specific employee will not be heard during public comments and should be considered separately as provided in board policy. In this context, individuals are cautioned to not identify any employee by name or by any combination of words or descriptions which could identify the employee to another individual. Public comments will be limited to individuals who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting before the board meeting began. Delegates of more than 5 persons shall appoint 1 person to present their views. An individual who signed up to participate in the public comment portion of the meeting may not relinquish their time to another individual. No public comment shall exceed 5 minutes. To ensure compliance with time limitations, a yellow card will be held up by the board secretary at 4 minutes, and a red card will be held up at 5 minutes. If you have any issues you would like to discuss with an administrative staff member, complete the designated form located at the table in the rear. We will, on first, Dr. Irene Patrisky.
Thank you, Mr. Westbrook, members of the board, Dr. Gibson. I've always said that the best part of a school board meeting are the student recognition. It's the kids that make us look good, and it's great that we have thousands of them because they are the best representation of this community. I'm very proud. So proud of them, and not only the students that have been recognized tonight or on a monthly basis. I highly regard and respect the students that we have that go to school, go to class, do the best they can. Students have additional jobs. Some of those monies that they earn go to support their household, not only for college funds, but also to add to the household income. They work very hard. They make us proud. I was 6 years old when I attended my very first board meeting. People ask me, Irene, why do you come to the board meetings? My first experience at a board meeting was exceptional. I'm a military brat. Was born in Fort Sam. I'm the eldest of the children in my family, and my dad said, you need to come with me. We're going to meet the people who make the decisions on how they spend our money. And I thought, wow, they spend our money, you earn it, and they spend it. You know, what's this about? He says, how do you think, who pays for the schools, the desks, the books, playground equipment, the salaries for the teachers who teach you? When I went to the administrative building, we were greeted at the door by each board member, the handshake. And let me tell you, they had phenomenal memories because they remembered my name, where I went to school, throughout my career at that particular school district. My parents attended board meetings, my mom or my dad, and I saw how it worked so well. It was not an intimidating place. They had the tables, and I wish we could go back to that, where the tables were level with the people, and they interacted really well. Just like Maggie Cornejo always supplies delicious coffee and cookies and tea. It was, but everybody was at the same level. You didn't have people set up higher to where they look down on you as a community. I would like to see us go back to there. Some of the best meetings I've ever attended has been where the board members have sat at the tables, mixed in with community members, the teaching staff, the principals, other people from our community, business members. I appreciate that. My dad also explained, my mom also explained, they were very active, not only in local, but state and national politics. When I graduated as a senior, the school board president sent us a letter, congratulations. When you turn 18, exercise your right to vote. And we did. I have at each one of those. Daddy and Mom also said, listen to the people, the ones that are your elected officials. It's okay that they have differences of opinion. You don't have to have a 7-0 vote. You don't have to be boring. As a matter of fact, I appreciate those that bring up issues and more clarity, especially when it comes to finances. My husband and I have lived here for 30 years. We have owned a home. We have paid taxes here for 30 years. I'm here for the long haul. I have not sold my home. I plan, hopefully, to be here for another 30 years. Bring it back full circle, in the 30 years that I have been here, the best part of this community have been the students. Thank you.
Next, Amber O'Neill.
President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, and board members, thank you for allowing me to speak on an issue I find troubling. I'm fully aware many people here tonight may not agree with me, and what I'm about to discuss is not easy. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Before I go on, I would like to reflect on the fact that the district stands behind and supports the belief statements, the very belief statements that are posted behind you, which is great. I'm glad that we have those, but they're only as good as if you stand behind them and you're true to your word. And if the board members and the district staff, their actions are in alignment with those belief statements. You take a minute and look at the third belief statement up there on that banner. It states that we believe living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning result in the ability to set and achieve lifelong goals. Based on current events, I believe the board is faced with two choices. Either request the resignation of a board member whose behavior is outside of this, or discard the belief statements in its entirety. Continuing to allow a board member with behavior that is clearly outside of this belief statement and reflects negatively upon the district is not what we believe in. The suspension of a law license and a recent arrest for an alleged assault are actions of someone, or not actions of someone, of good character and leadership. And allowing a member to continue to serve is outside of this statement. We all make mistakes, but a sign of a good leader is to accept responsibility and to acknowledge his or her mistakes and how they may affect those around him or her. Just over a year ago, I had a very lengthy phone conversation with this board member and asked this board member to come forward and make a statement regarding the loss of a law license before the media got a hold of it, because I felt it was right and the right thing to do, to acknowledge, yes, I messed up, I lost my license, and this is how it may or may not affect the district, or how it may look negative upon the district. That person chose not to, and guess what? May 17th, an article was released, right? I'm sure we all read it. The board member's statement in the article is exactly the same statement he gave me last January. This is a personal, private business matter between me and one former client. It hasn't had any effect on my ability to be a good trustee or a good school board president. I leave that up to the folks to decide. That may be true, but those actions are still clearly outside of our belief statement. That being said, I leave this for you to decide. You've got several choices here. You ask for resignation, discard the belief statements, or continue with no change and continue to accept hypocrisy. I have another statement to read on behalf of somebody who could not be here. Much in line with the same exact statement that I just read, and it says verbatim, one of your belief statements that you read during every board meeting is, we believe living our core values of leadership, character, commitment, service, and learning result in the ability to set and achieve lifelong goals. The resulting arrest of a board member with a charge of a third-degree felony and previous action taken by the State Bar of Texas to suspend his law license does not live up to the standards of the SCUC-ISD's beliefs. The fact that this person has not already resigned his position as a board member also proves that character does not matter. How do we as a district expect to hold our kids accountable if our elected officials aren't accountable for their actions? If this had been a teacher, would we be discussing resignation? I believe not. I feel certain that the teacher would, at a bare minimum, be suspended until the case was adjudicated. When people choose to move to an area, one of the first things they do is ask questions or Google the quality of our school district. This public arrest and suspension of the person's law license does not bode well for SCUC-ISD and its surrounding cities. I want to ask the board member in question to do the right thing tonight and to resign from the board effective immediately. This is what we're faced with, and I know you guys are all well aware that I've been in contact with you. You choose not to respond. You choose not to make a statement, and it's very disappointing. I think President Westbrook, we've had one conversation, but I've probably sent you a dozen emails with no response. A response as simple as, you know what, Ms. O'Neill, according to the attorney, I can't discuss this with you, would have been nice, but you chose not to. So, thank you.
Next, we will have Susie Mitchell.
Mr. President, Dr. Gibson, members of the school board, thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I am here to discuss agenda item 11A. The agenda is very vague, but I am going to assume that the discussion topic will be about Mr. Inman. Gary Inman and I went to high school together at Samuel Clemens over 30 years ago. Mr. Inman has volunteered his time for the school board for almost 20 years now. Gary and I both have a passion for education, so I know how much time he has given to this board and to this community. If you have been on the board for a while, you will know that I also taught in this district for 21 years. I was in Italy on December 21st when my phone started lighting up that Mr. Inman had been arrested for a domestic dispute. Without knowing any more about the arrest than anyone else in this room at the time, I know Mr. Inman's situation dealing with a blended family and a stepson with behavior issues. And I immediately knew that somehow this dispute involved his stepson. When you see domestic dispute on the TV and that someone has been arrested, you immediately think there's a spouse involved or a child. Gary's stepson is neither. He is a 21-year-old that is over 6 foot tall. I know that Mr. Inman loves his family and is not a violent person and would never hurt anyone in his family. But I also know how much he loves his 8-year-old son and would do anything to protect his son within his own home. It is very easy to see the news and to speculate and create your own story in your own mind. But I would think and hope that if anyone was in your household and threatening the safety of your child and yourself, that you also would go into defense mode. I have been saying for months that it is very sad and scary that we now live in a society where all it takes is one accusation to be found guilty on social media. Much of the news out there truly is fake news. So please be sure that you have all the facts before you make any decisions, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next on the agenda was an opportunity to go into closed session. Does any board member feel the need to go into executive session?
Mr. Westbrook, let me point out here, just, I know you and I had discussed this previously, but the agenda item is vague to some extent, but I'm going to assume that it does in part at least address me and my situation back in December. And I'm going to invoke the Texas Government Code, and if there's any discussion with respect to me or this matter, I request that it be done in open session before the public.
Do we have a reason to talk to our attorney about this, make sure we're on firm legal ground?
Other than the memo sent by the attorney, that's the only thing we would be discussing legal matters in this closed session. So if you have any questions about the attorney's opinion, then that's what we would discuss. But anything concerning Trustee Inman would be held in open session according to his Open Meetings Act.
Thank you.
None? Well, if that's the case, we will bypass the closed session, go to the continue in open session. We will consider and take action. There were 4 requests, at least 3 requests, so I will enumerate them, and if the board decides to take action or make a motion. Is there any motion or request for discussion concerning the resignation of Gary Inman? Hearing none, I'll move on. Is there any request from a board member for the consider of censure of Gary Inman? Motion or discussion? Hearing none, I will go to the third. Is there any motion or discussion concerning a board statement, a statement from the Board of Trustees concerning the alleged actions of Gary Inman? Hearing none, is there any motion or statement or need for discussion concerning the reorganization of the Board of Trustees? Hearing none, we will...
Mr. President, I was going to ask that just in light of the fact that there are no motions on the table, I still think it would be important for me to provide a statement to the public if that's okay with the remainder of the school board.
If there's no objection from the remainder of the school board, I'll allow it to happen.
Mr. Westbrook, with all due respect, would it be possible for those of us also to make a statement, even though it's not a motioned item? I know that's kind of outside the norm. But
then what I'll do is...
Since we don't have a motion, I'm just asking that question.
I'll allow it. I think it's only appropriate to sort of end with Gary Inman, if we can.
Why don't we just, since he agreed to make it an open session, why don't we just make a motion and second it, and then anybody can make the statement they want?
Do we have a motion from the Board of Trustees to discuss?
I make a motion that the Board of Trustees discuss the item that Mr. Inman agreed to discuss in open session.
There was a motion and there a second. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Discussion item. Who wants to begin?
Well, I just, I understand that there's some level of concern out there. I don't agree with it because, as been stated, Mr. Inman's been on the board for almost 20 years. The issue that he may have had with his law license has absolutely nothing to do with being a school board member. And he was up for re-election, and that was well publicized that he had an issue with his law license. He had 2 people run against him, and he defeated those 2 people and won a re-election. So obviously that wasn't a concern on the behalf of the citizens of this community. And the actions that took place in Mr. Inman's home in December, I wasn't there. I've just seen what most of you have seen in the paper. I don't know that any of y'all were there. and I haven't read any police report. That's not going to tell me a whole lot other than, what happened. But in my way of thinking, this was a disagreement between two adults. It got out of hand. And again, I'll go back to the situation. You can talk about our belief statements and all that kind of thing, but this has absolutely nothing to do with Mr. Inman's ability to be an effective board member. He always has been, and I suspect he will continue to be an effective board member. He's given his heart, his soul, his time to this school district, and as been stated, everybody makes a mistake. I don't know that that's a mistake, defending your child from possible harm. I would have done that. I don't care what it looks like. I would have done it. And I'm not judge and jury here, and I don't think anybody else should be. I'm just stating that this is how I feel about this, and I've made it known that this is how I feel about it. I don't think Mr. Westbrook has any reason to resign. Mr. Westbrook just followed the advice of our attorney, and that's what we pay these people for. What's the use of having an attorney if you're not going to follow their advice? You may not like it, but Mr. Westbrook's statement was what the attorney asked him to say. Because it's a dicey road out there when you start saying things without having the advice of someone who has been there before. So we have to be careful. Mr. Westbrook is our board president. He speaks for the board members. That's the rule that we have. The board president is the voice of the board. And that's why when someone asks us for a statement, we typically let the board member, the president, respond for us. Someone asks me directly for a statement, if it's about something that I'm involved in, I'll be happy to tell them that. But if it's a board problem, then we revert it back to the board president, as we should. That keeps everybody kind of out of trouble. And we don't have a lot of people out there, 7 different people saying 7 different things. So, I'm just, I understand this is not about board governance. We had a board member who sent an email out requesting that we have Mr. Inman resign or censure him, and that Mr. Westbrook should resign. That's not about board governance. That's about politics. And those are 2 different things. I'm not running for an election in a higher office. I ran for a school board because I want to give back to this district what this district has given me and my family. And I've always tried to keep that in mind. I haven't always done everything everybody wanted me to do, and I have a reason for that. I know there's some people who are not happy with me. I can live with that. But again, Mr. Inman has done a lot for this district. He's always been above and beyond reproach as a board member. He's not offered a contract to somebody as a board member. He's not violated a board policy. He's not violated a school board policy, hasn't violated board procedure. This was an incident. Unfortunate. I think we just need to move on. Thank you.
Mr. Finley?
For the moment, I'll pass. Thank you.
Trustee Dreisbeck?
I just wanted to agree with Mr. Pivito in the fact that Mr. Westbrook represents us as board president. He speaks for us. And I've sat in many meetings as well, and he did follow. Some people probably need to, you can go on our site and look up our board policy and follow. Some people have asked us to ask him to resign. You need to go read some of our board policy to see, and that is why Mr. Westbrook might not have replied to some, because he did let people know that we were following board policy. And that's what this board does for good governance.
Mr. Perkins? Nothing. Mr. Carew?
I'll pass for now.
Trustee Inman?
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, even though there was no motion made on this, I do think It's my duty as a publicly elected official to make a statement. Again, I didn't have to be here tonight, but I think that's the appropriate thing for me to do. So this may take 2.5 minutes, but I definitely want to make sure I get this on the record. Out of respect for my fellow trustees, the administration, and the school district community as a whole, I would like to take this opportunity to make a brief statement regarding my arrest, which occurred just before Christmas. I have seen and I've heard plenty of false rumors and speculation throughout the community over this past month, and I've been somewhat disturbed by the gross lack of accuracy in some of the things that I have read and seen. Probably the worst of it is that any number of people I hear spreading a rumor that this involved me and my wife. I think that's despicable on its face. My wife was 40 miles away and had absolutely nothing to do with this. So why somebody would think that's appropriate to spread around is beyond me. You know, the cold hard fact is, and I think it was stated earlier, there are only 3 individuals and 3 individuals only who were present during this event. Not the police, not the media, no one else sitting up here on this dais, and no one else from this community. It was my 21-year-old stepson, it was my 8-year-old son, and it was me. We're the only 3 people who know what happened that afternoon. Please know that other than my arrest, I have not been charged with any crime. We're now 5 to 6 weeks later. I've not been charged with any crime. And I fully expect that this case will either be dismissed, which I believe is the right thing to do, or if we do happen to have a trial, then I will be found innocent of those charges. My actions occurred solely within my own home, in my kitchen. My actions were reasonable and limited under the circumstances, and were solely for the purpose of protecting myself and my young 8-year-old son. As I believe Mr. Pivito said, I can't imagine that anyone else in my shoes would not have acted exactly the way I did. My stepson is a grown man. He's 21 years of age. Unfortunately, he does have a documented history of mental health and behavioral issues, and is currently on probation for felony assault of a female, which occurred about a year ago. As a condition of his rehabilitation, my wife and I, even though we'd kicked him out dozens of times over the years, we agreed to allow him to move back into our home as part of his probation. We care very much about his best interests, and we have been doing all that we can to help him with his difficult issues. Unfortunately, and this was what gets me the most, if I did not volunteer my time, I emphasize volunteer my time, to do everything that I can to serve this school district and the kids and the parents and the administration and the taxpayers, my family would be allowed to handle what is arguably a private family matter in the privacy of our own home, and not in the news, and certainly not in social media. I have been a proud part of this district for almost 40 years. My family moved here in 1979, graduated from Clemens High School, and I have served on the school board now for almost 20 years. I'm pretty sure not a single one of you in this room today were here the day I began my first school board meeting. And as it was also stated, I put myself out to the public for election back in November. With all the warts and whatever you want to call it, that's politics. And yes, by the grace of God, the citizens decided by fairly wide margin to return me to this seat. That's what elected politics is all about. I do want to let everyone know that my wife and I very much appreciate all of the kind words and support that we've received during this very difficult time. It's been somewhat surprising, quite honestly, to hear so many people come up to me and tell me stories, similar stories that have actually happened to their own families, minus the arrest. I also want to point out that I think there may be 60,000 people live in this community, and this is 5 weeks after this occurred. I've received a grand total of 2 communications from anyone in this community asking me to resign, and one of those spoke here tonight. I do need to let you know that I absolutely love this school district. I love this community. I've given my blood, sweat, and tears over the last 20 years to do all that I can for this district. And I certainly apologize. I do apologize for any negative impact or any negative press that my actions may have caused. Thank you.
Any further comment from any Board of Trustee? Hearing none, I think it's appropriate to sort of take a board recess, and we can reconvene at 7:10. The board is back in session. It's 7:10. We will now have any correspondence. No correspondence. Report on board advocacy. Mr. Pivito?
Well, I just, I guess go back to December. I did a high-level rounding at Allison Steele, which was a really great experience. I know that Ms. Knox has done a great job there. Of course, she's retired now, and Ms. Newman is there, or Dr. Newman, I should say, is there, and I think things will continue to be really, really good there. Also continue to do my volunteering at Green Valley Elementary with the Watchdogs, and that's always a great experience. So anyway, that's it.
Mr. Finley.
Thank you, President Westbrook. I was able to attend the Clemens 50th anniversary on Saturday. If I hadn't, I think my daughter would have probably shot me on sight since she's a Clemens graduate. So I had to go and see everybody that was up there. I really had a lot of fun going through the library and seeing all the yearbooks. I actually found Mr. Inman's high school graduation picture. I thought, wait a minute, he looks far better than I did at graduation. So how did that happen?
Was he in his basketball shorts?
I'm not going to say, but he looked like he was very serious about being that picture. So, but he looked real good. So 1985 was a good year, I think, at least for Clemens. I think everybody had a really good time up there. Got to see a lot of people I hadn't seen for a while. Dr. Puska was up there, gave some great remarks. Mr. Limhoff pretty well stole the show, but he had some really great anecdotes, and I really appreciated that. So I wish we didn't have to wait 50 years to do this again, but sometimes it only comes around once in a lifetime, so we got to do it. So it was a really nice time. I think everybody had a really good time, and I'm still trying to get back in the swing of things. I've still got to do some orientation. Unfortunately, I got snowed out this last Tuesday, so we're going to try and reschedule that. But other than that, getting back in the swing of it. So thank you very much.
Ms. Drysbeck?
Four of us were at the CTE, which I know we're going to hear an update on construction, but we got a tour of the CTE building at Clemens, which was incredible. And I hope some of the people, if anybody went to the Clemens anniversary, got to go over to the new building as well. I attended a Region 20, at the Region 20 Center for the State Board of Education and Long-Term Planning. And Dr. Wood was there, as well as a parent and myself, and about, over 150 more people, and we were helping them give feedback on the long-term 10-year plan for the State Board of Education for the state of Texas. So that was really great. There were other board members from Northeast, Northside there, and a couple other places. We just had Erin Suarez as one of our student representatives, and I saw her this weekend. I attended the Guadalupe County Livestock Show, as well as Mr. Mosley's daughter and many more. I counted today in the cell on Saturday, 63 of the 400 lots were just Cibolo Creek FFA kids out of the 400. And you got to remember, that's the whole county. Navarro, Seguin, Marion. That doesn't count any of our Clemens kids, our 4-H kids. My daughter's in Clemens 4-H. And so it was probably, approaching 75 to 100 kids, total kids. So that is a great showing. The weekend before, if any of y'all have heard of the BORY, that group is created to help purchase the animals at the livestock show for a lot of our Cibolo Creek FFA kids. So I attended that fundraiser the week before. And then I was also at the Clemens 50th anniversary, and that Clemens staff did a absolute wonderful job on that, and I really kudos to them.
Mr. Perkins.
I was also at the CTE building opening, and it's a fantastic building, and I never went to school at Clemens, but when I went to school in the late 70s, our CTE program was not anywhere near that elaborate. Also want to reiterate that the 50th anniversary ceremony at Clemens was fantastic, very well done. It was very neat to see the third and even fourth generation families recognized there for participation in our school district. I've been to 3 different rezoning discussions, and those are going very well. We're getting very practiced at it, or at least one of us is getting practice at it. I have to admit that after 10 minutes yesterday at Steele, and we were the only ones there, I decided to pull the tenured instructor card, and we called it. So I've also attended the Tri-County Chamber Luncheon and the Northeast Partnership Luncheon. And I'm a member on the Communities and Schools Board for South Central Texas, and was proud to see them in here tonight. That was neat. That was a surprise to me. So I'm obviously not fully aware of everything going on. But I want to reiterate to everyone that on February 2nd, there's a campus chat at Clemens. And anyone who has any interest in communities and schools, that's where you hear it directly from the students that are participating in communities and schools. And lunch will be provided, so please sign up to attend. That's all.
Mr. Carew.
I attended a couple of the rezoning meetings as well, or public meetings as well, and then I'm probably going to offend Ms. Dreisbeck, so hopefully I don't in this, and probably my wife in the process as well. My wife's a math teacher, and I know you teach math, and I shouldn't probably say this as a school board member, but math is not a very good subject of mine, and I've never really liked it, and I've never done well at it, and it is my worst subject ever. And so I attended my first Guadalupe County appraisal meeting the other night. And we sat there for about an hour and a half and talked about numbers. And I remember sitting there thinking, you know, maybe I should have paid more attention in school, because they started talking about formulas and ratios and how this, you know, percentage affects this. And, you know, of course, I'm trying to look up what they're talking about on Google. And it wasn't that bad, but I did attend my first meeting for the appraisal district, and got sworn in, and it went well. But like I said, I guess I'm going to have to get caught up on some of my formulas and some of the things that they use, because school was rough, and I have a feeling this may be rough too, but it was actually very interesting. That's all I have.
Mr. Inman.
All right, I also attended the 50th anniversary for Samuel Clemens. I guess the funny thing was that I was also born in 1967. So I was kind of thinking it was my big birthday party to show up with all that crowd. But Mr. Finley, I think you did get a chance to see my graduation photo, which may have been hard to recognize. But the photo that you may have missed, even harder to recognize, believe it or not, I was voted as the most handsome of my class. And I believe that photo was there as well. So just thought I'd let you know about that.
Was it black and white?
It was black and white. Coach Lenhoff the Coach Lenhoff, I'll call him, right? The Coach Lenhoff Robert Lenhoff did get a chance to make some comments, and you could tell he hadn't had the microphone in his hand in a few years. He did not want to give that thing back, but it was definitely a great event. I mean, I don't know how many schools do that, but to think that school's been there for 50 years, and just walking the hall, and I saw a lot of old teachers and classmates or people you just kind of recognize over the years, and somehow, some way, you just know the names. I mean, it's kind of funny. Our very own Miss Goldhorn is from back in those days, correct? Okay. Hadn't changed a bit either, right? Yeah. Okay. So, but yeah, it was definitely something special to be a part of.
Thank you. I also attended the CTE, the Church City Council meeting, Watts rezoning presentation, and also attended the Samuel Clemens 50th anniversary. And a little fact, I think the original class, I think the lady said, was 102 graduating students, and I think Mrs. Sosa said as of this year it might be up to 700. So it's incredible the growth that Clemens has had, and sort of see all the history behind it. And I did participate in the scavenger hunt. I did not win. I need to talk to somebody about that. There were some Journey concert tickets on the line, so but I did do the scavenger hunt. And it's nice to see the participation from the board. I think every month we start to see more and more board participation in district-wide activities, which is a great, great thing. Next, we will have the report, January 2018 construction update presented by Krusky and J.D. Mosley. Oh, Mr. Mosley. Oh.
Mr. Mosley will be doing the first half of the update, and then I'll come in for the Clemens part.
Mr. Pruski, are you up for a role as Abraham Lincoln somewhere that we don't know about? I mean,
So, oh, I guess I was talking loud enough, I'm sure. Thank you, Stephen. And then look ahead, just really more of what's going on now, continuing to come out. So project's going well. Thank you.
Clemens High School, thank you for the comments regarding the CTE building. They're working feverishly to finish it up 100% complete, inside and outside. We are now, for the total project, proposed to be completed in 2020, so we still have a ways to go, so we're roughly just under that 30% completion right now. Oh, nice. Did you do that? So, quick rundown on the CTE building, doing the site work around the building. The practice gym moving forward here near Elbel. The classroom administration addition moving forward as well, and hopefully those pictures will come through, or this will be really quick. I apologize for this. It was fine earlier. And then the event center moving all at the same time. So here is Samuel Clemens, the CTE building in the back with the asphalt work. You can see partially complete on the north end. We're looking to finish total asphalt around the building later on this week into next week. And then, as you know, inside the building, classes are going on, have been going on since the start of the January when we came back. The future northeast parking lot, we have curbs poured, and looking forward to the asphalt and the striping there as well in the near future. You can see the curbs on the lower part there and going all the way. This is the event center, also known as the P building, but basically this is the big entryway into the new auxiliary gym and to the auditorium to the right. So we're getting ready for the second floor concrete pour, and things are going to get really interesting here shortly. Another look from it there with the P building in the middle, and then the auditorium coming down to the lower right. So you can kind of see the site forming up there. This is a look at the front addition, starting from the upper left. That's the two-story classroom addition there on the far left, and as you come across towards the middle, that'll be the administrative support offices as well as classrooms upstairs. And then the lower level onto the right there is the further admin on the lower right. So the admin suite's pretty much taken up 2/3, and then the other third with the two-story classrooms there. So that's taking shape now, and you can kind of see our entry canopy beginning to form as well. Just a side look reverse now from the baseball field, looking the total opposite way. then the auxiliary gym, L-Bell there to the left at about 9 o'clock, so we're closing it up. So the 2-week look ahead, continuing on those buildings there, the event center, the classroom addition, and the northeast parking lot as mentioned there as well. A lot of work, a lot of trades, a lot of coordination going on there still. There is, not to sound repetitive to JD, that there is a lot of people here on this site and a lot of work happening for Clemens. HVAC and at Watts, Wilder, and Jordan, as you know, paused until the next summer. So we're holding at the 49% complete, and then next summer we will continue on and finish out those projects. Technology, working on the network infrastructure, phone replacement, and classroom technology of the retrofit the classrooms with display panels. This is an ongoing project, 3 years, and looking at Combs. And as you can see, they were at the initial part of this at 5% on the technology side. And that's pretty much the rundown for this month.
No questions?
Yeah, I have kind of a side question here, Wayne, if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind. Have any of the contractors said anything to you about availability of workforce? You know, one of the questions we had with the hurricanes and everything was the ability to be able to sustain the building growth, you know, and how much the cost might increase because of that, you know.
Right.
Have they given you any indication on that?
Early on, after early aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, there was a lot of concern and talk about that. At this time, I don't think we have a workforce issue there. On a professional mindset of mine, I think sometimes it is a quality issue.
Yeah.
But the workforce is there. It's just, it's strained out. There's a lot of work going on in and around this area, so
Right.
everybody's pulling everybody.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you. Is there any, I don't know, JD, you may be, update on the turf at Linhoff Stadium?
Sure. That's one of our EPP projects that we kicked off this year, and we, Coach Linhoff and I, were out there tonight watching them roll out the first parts of the turf. So when we uncovered it, there were a few spots on the subgrade that we needed to make some repairs to. So those have been, some of them have been completed. We're working on those, but we did get some turf going down tonight. So.
All right, okay, good deal. Thank you.
Wayne, fast question, because I'm asked a lot about that parking. I was just asked this weekend again, actually by students, because I guess they don't like parking at tennis courts, but anyways. So I just said, when you see the asphalt poured, then it'll be ready. So, our new February sometime?
Yes, ma'am. Now that we have this ongoing and the work is there, the trade is there with asphalt, the mobilization to the northeast is expected to happen soon thereafter. So we're going to knock this piece out around the educational area and then move out to the parking lot.
Anything more? Next, we have a discussion item, 2018-2019 budget development process, presented by Dr. Gibson and Paige Maloney.
Yeah, so I'm distributing the most recent draft of the budget parameter memo, and we can anticipate it having draft on it for 4 or 5 months. We made a decision today to post it on the website. I think there's a few like grammatical things that we may tweak, and then we're going to put it out for feedback with draft on it. And then Mr. Westbrook and Ms. Strasbeck, and I'll offer this to the board. They've asked that on February the 12th, that workshop be devoted entirely to budget, and kind of just take a pulse check of where we are. And so what we're handing you is this draft tonight, hard copy, so that you can take it and look through it between now and the 12th, and then let us know if you have any questions as we build the agenda and prepare for that workshop that night. Ms. Maloney would be available if you have any questions specifically, or we can wait till the 12th.
And I would say I do have extra copies if anyone would.
I would just say, Dee Dee, if you want to see if anyone in the audience wants to take them, we're going to put them on the website and see if anyone in the audience wants to take them. We're ready to send out a rough draft, and so that we can start the conversation about the 18-19 budget.
So will it be posted online, the
Yeah.
draft?
Yeah,
Yes.
we're gonna do one more, just a grammatical thing, sweep, but the content's ready to go.
And we'll send the revisions in the board report on Friday before we post.
Okay, there was one question about the, trying to make sure it's clear on the, because a new website, it's new, and people are having difficulty trying to find certain, find access to information that they used to have, be familiar with. So as long as it's clear how to find this
Right.
draft document, I'd appreciate it.
And we'll link it in several different places. I work with technology to make sure that it's front and center, and then also on Board of Trustees and Finance page.
Thank you.
Mr. President, just in a quick read, the opening statement, a sentence jumps off pretty quick. While the district is projecting a slight increase in overall expected revenue in 18-19, general operating budget revenue is projected to be less than the prior school year.
Yeah.
If
Yes,
our
sir.
population is going up, which means our ADA would be going up, are we expecting less revenue from the state, and we can't make that difference up?
It's two things. It is next year, and I just heard on the Texas Commission for School Finance today, it actually dipped below 38% in this biennium. So that's for the state participation. So in 10 years, it's gone from 49% to 38%. And then we built the budget last year on the mid-growth projection. This year, we're building it on the low growth. So even though it is still a growth and it's a continue, if you think about what that number was for last year's budget and then what the number is for this year, they're about the same, or this is even slightly less for this year.
It's less students than we built the budget on last year, to the tune of
Yeah.
about, 74.
Is the water going to go up?
Yes, I mean, but, and we'll also get the 106, remember the
Right,
golden penny's going to
106,
increase
right.
to that.
Instead-
But if
instead
you
of
look,
99.
building it on $1.04, it's just slightly below where it was last year. I think it's about 400,000. I'd have to go to that scenario, but it's in here.
Okay, I'll go through that. Just so I'll have some other questions, because you and I still have to get together anyway, so this would be a good starting point
That's
for me
why,
to-
that's perfect. That's
Right.
why we were distributing it, to let everybody just start reading it. And Mr. Finley, we also, at someone's recommendation, I like it, and you just kind of touched on it, this has got, your military, this has got the bluff bottom line up front, and someone said, put the bottom line right up front. So we did, there it is, and then, the rest of the memo kind of explains that statement.
And I will say that these scenarios, first runs, are based on second 6 weeks projections. We've done our forecast through December, and we're waiting on, Moak and Casey is analyzing our ADA and seeing where we are after third 6 weeks. So the numbers could change, hopefully for the better.
Okay, so when are we going to know for sure, or at least get a really good set of numbers for next year, at least a projection, our fifth 6 weeks?
Well, this is the best projection we have right now. We'll
Okay.
update it at 3, we'll update it at 4,
5, and at the
all the
end.
way up until the end of the year.
Okay, so this
Yeah.
is the best estimate we have
Today.
as it stands
Today.
right now, but it'll probably change.
Oh, yeah.
Hopefully for the better, but.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go through, okay, thank you.
Anything more? Next, we'll have discussion update to board operating procedures, standard response protocol for parent questions and concerns presented by Dr. Gibson.
Thank you, President Westbrook and trustees. This is a practice that we had been following. It just had not been codified in board operating guidelines. So on page 22 in your board book, Mr. Westbrook and Ms. Dreisbeck had asked me and staff to take the process, again, that we had typically followed in the past and she'll write it up. And so this is a discussion item tonight. So if you have any feedback regarding this protocol on page 22, let us know. We're just trying to standardize the way we respond when there are concerns or feedback from the community.
Any comments? Like I said, when I first came in, I was sort of nervous about how to respond. And so I talked to Dr. Gibson and Ed Suarez, and this is sort of the result, the manifestation of sort of my concerns about having a standard response, so I don't stray too far from board policy. and making sure we have a cohesive message going forward with, especially with complaints. Is there anything, any other questions, comments?
And we'll be open for any feedback over the month, and then we'll bring it back to the board next month. But let us know if you see anything over this coming month that you would like to see modified in it.
It's a working guideline. Next, we will have board relations. We want to excuse day of absence for district employees on January 16th of this year due to inclement weather, presented by Dr. Gibson.
Yeah, thank you, President Westbrook. So this is kind of a unique situation, but we found ourselves a few weeks ago, January 16, with the imminent ice threat. So, you know, you never know if it's the right decision or not, and it doesn't matter what decision you make. Half's going to go one way and the other half's going to go the other way, and you just go on. So we did check, and I think there were over 300 wrecks in the city of San Antonio on overpasses due to ice. And I'll just say that if we would have dumped, you know, a couple of 100,000 school kids in that mix, I believe there would have been more than 230 wrecks. So, you know, I think we made a good decision. Now then, we're working on the reality of, you know, not having school that day. So we will send a memo out tomorrow. We calculated our minutes. Thank you to Ms. Maloney and the PEAM staff for going through it, and then they had Dr. Edwards and staff double check it, and we have enough minutes due to the new law to cover and students to not have to make up that day. We couldn't make up another one. We don't have enough to make up a second one. We would have to, you know, we'd have to make that day up. So what we're recommending then is on February the 19th, which was listed as a makeup day, professional development day, that stays as professional development. So we've told Dr. Wood, do not cancel speakers. You know, we're good, and we don't. That does not require board action, because we built that into the calendar that the board approved. What does require board action is we had a lot of staff members that day, and many of whom wanted to come in, and we said no, do not get out on the roads. And these are a lot, mainly hourly employees, you know, that need to work. And so we told everybody no. I think you may have brought some essential staff just to make sure heaters were going and things like that. And so by board policy, the board may waive those staff members having to make that day up and just say, look, we're going to do King's X on that. We're through that day. You stayed home because we told you to stay home. We're not going to make you work on a Saturday. We're not going to make you work on Memorial Day, et cetera. But that does require a board resolution in order to accomplish that. And the resolution, you can see, is worded in a way that, you know, and again, this is following what the education code allows, but it does have to be by board resolution if you were to consider waiving that day.
And Dr. Gibson, I'm sorry, it may not be directly relevant, but what are the different ways we communicate with the public or our staff that we do have that day off?
The February 19th?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going out.
February 19th, the ice day.
Well, the ice day?
How do you get the word out?
No, I'm saying, no, not looking forward. I'm talking, when we do have an ice day or weather day, how exactly do we communicate that with everybody?
So I don't know, I make a call and tell everybody it's off and stuff happens. So what,
Y'all
tell him what?
I think immediately after after confirmation and communication from Dr. Gibson to ELT then disseminates the information out to directors, and directors start their communication tree, and it's done within an hour.
Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering, we don't have any problems with 10% of the staff showing up anyways because they never got the message, or pretty much.
I got it like 3 different ways. I got it through email, Class Dojo. Every time I turn around, I was getting alerts saying there's no school today.
Yes, sir.
Remind 101.
We also do
Yeah.
a messenger system that we do district-wide so that each campus is not having to do that individually, so that goes out to staff and parents. Multitude of ways to try. Obviously, Mr. Suarez gets that on the webpage, you know, immediately, Facebook, Twitter, call-outs, mail-outs, emails.
We try to do all of that by 5 a.m., is that right? I mean, like all that blown out by 5 a.m.
Right. Well, and this one was actually the day prior to.
Yeah, okay, thank you. But if we were to call one
Yes,
in the
sir.
morning, and in that case, we said 5 p.m. because we wanted to get it before the news, so we held a 4 p.m. phone conference.
Yes, sir.
I have to commend the district. The information got out so fast. I was being inundated. Are we going to have going to say, just check social media? It's out there. And I was going, okay. So by 5 o'clock, I'd say at least 3 times, I'm sure, probably 5. And then the press picked up at 5 and ran with it. So the district did an excellent job of getting the information out there. So I would commend everybody that it was definitely disseminated in a very timely manner.
Facebook, website, Class Dojo, email, And yeah, they came out all early, so.
I'm only in charge of letting 2 people know. If I don't let them know, it's not good.
I have a question. Just,
yes.
I may not understand this. So the resolution is basically giving them paid day of work.
You're authorizing me just to waive them having to make that day up.
And the question I have is, and absolutely I agree, but does waiting till February in any way inhibit them from getting paid?
No, that's a really good question, and we've talked about that, but I don't think that it will, because we're in a holding pattern with them right now. We're not going to do anything to hurt them right now. And so what would happen is if this didn't pass, I think is what you're saying, in February, then we would have to find a day to make up. I think the day we picked is Memorial Day.
Kind of like, actually the opposite. I don't want to wait till February to give them a payday that they could have been getting now. I don't want to hold a day's pay.
No, it will not do that, right?
Okay.
It will not do that. It would just, we would have to go find this makeup day on Memorial Day.
Yeah. Okay.
But thank you for clarifying that.
And can I, now that y'all calculated the minutes, I know that question has been posed a lot. I've seen on social media, are we making it up? Are we not making it up the day? So
That goes out
after-
tomorrow morning.
Okay.
We were kind of waiting to have this conversation tonight, and then tomorrow morning that we're blasting out. You have it right, Dee Dee, on your desk, and we'll get it typed up. We confirmed it today at Team 1, and that will be blasted out tomorrow morning. Okay.
So, Dr. Gibson, let me understand this. Is this a day that's going to be made up somewhere down the line?
No, this is staff that technically, because this is one of their work days, we're not going to make them make that day up. We're just going to say, you didn't come in, so we're going, by board resolution, we're not going to make you make that day up.
Okay. So, okay, so you're using that as that was a staff day? Is that what you're?
No, what I'm saying is teachers are going to work 179 days, 240-day contracts are going to work 239 days, 220 days are going to work 219 days.
Okay, so how does that work with state law of not being able to get paid for work? You can't get paid for work you didn't do.
Education Code 45.1, subsection 105, by board resolution, that's the only way that you can authorize.
Okay,
what I'm asking
that's
you
what
to-
I'm getting to. Okay,
Yeah.
so that
This
will
covers that.
pertain
This is the
not
only.
just to hourly people, but also to classroom teachers.
Yes.
And well, okay, that's why I was.
No, and this is the only way to do that by
Right,
state
yeah,
law.
and I'm okay with it. I was just wondering what's going to happen with the classroom teachers, you know, that, or the staff, the general staff, the administrators, whatever. So, because we've had situations where, you know, where you don't get paid, you didn't work, you don't get paid. I mean, we've had before, you know, so.
In the absence of this resolution, that's what would have to
happen.
occur.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, all right.
Well, and if you look at number 4, pretty well says it exactly why we're doing it, what we're doing, and under the Education Code, like I said, section 45.105C. So number 4 says is the operative sentence in there.
I didn't get to number 4.
This includes everybody, right? Bus drivers,
Let's take
maintenance
care of
workers.
All staff.
This is coming back next
Yeah,
next month for
we'll put it on consent.
consent.
That's okay, yeah.
Next, we will have the local policy update affecting policy DH local employee standards of conduct presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, good evening, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, and members of the board. Our DH our legal policy currently states that a district may prohibit a school employee who holds a license to carry a gun under Government Code Chapter 411, Subchapter 11, from transporting or storing a handgun or other firearm in their vehicle. The new policy DH local under Update 109 added something to that, which is provided that the handgun or other firearm is not loaded, which is not written into the government code. So the recommendation is that we not put that language in there as far as it being not loaded, and stick with the government code, and which would make our DH policy local into an X policy versus an A version of the policy. And this was a recommendation that back in December when I attended our personnel organization, and a couple attorney firms were there that said that TASB really took it a step above by adding that language into it, and said that we really cannot police that because it doesn't go with the government code. So the recommendation would be next month to bring the policy as an X policy without that language being in there.
And Linda, this was actually in Update 109, and you pulled it even after the board saw Update 109 the first time, because that's when you went to the conference where they said, we really recommend. It's a rare instance when the professional organization disagrees with the attorneys at TASB.
Correct.
And we typically try to go with A version, but this was a rare instance where we were advised to don't go with the A version, leave that word out.
That's correct.
We worked extensively on an administrative regulation with staff members and our school resource officers and a lot of folks to kind of get it where we felt like it needed to be. Spent hours working on it, and what you're proposing would be in alignment with what we said.
That is correct.
In our admin reg.
Could you just explain the difference between A and X?
Yeah, so the A, if it down at the bottom left-hand corner, if that carries an A, then that just means that the TASB lawyers put that out to all the districts, and that is the base version that they put out for everyone. And if you do, so if we change a word, then it's an X. So now, and we have some X policies, and that's okay, but we try to stick with A versions as much as we can. But I think the mantra we have with this circle, or this group right out here, is that if it is X, we want it to be X for a good reason, not just it accidentally wound up there.
Any other questions? Concerning this? It's sort of a side note. Is there, since we're talking about loaded firearms and people carrying them, is there any estimate about the number of teachers that may be carrying? No?
Oh, I have no idea.
Just if we had any estimate about the number of teachers or employees that might be carrying.
That's a good point. Do they have to report that or notify anyone?
No, sir.
That's the law.
We can't even, okay.
Do we still have that, it's called a marshals program or something like that, where you're allowed to designate certain employees as marshals? I don't know if that's still in existence or.
It may be. We did not choose to go down that route, but we did choose to do this once that law was changed about the same time. And what we did, the work that we did, I think Mr. Crew, you were part of that with SROs, maybe that time before you were on the board, or after, I can't remember. Our circles, our circle drives, we tried to put some limitations on things like that. You don't have it out on your dashboard when you come through the pickup line. I mean, so we tried to, and our attorney said that's about that's about as far as you can go. I mean, that's it. You can't, anything beyond that's against Texas state law.
And the Marshall program is still in existence, but most schools with SROs or with ISDs don't utilize it because they have campus police already. I 100% agree with this particular one. When we looked at it in the first place, it was because several teachers and coaches approached me, and it was most of them had the same exact scenario as, hey, I coach and I'm here at 8 o'clock at night, and sometimes I have to drive home to Lavernia or whatever, and they just want to make sure they had their gun if they stop to get gas. And I think every single one of them had a scenario being there after hours, and that was their concern, and they just want to make sure they had it traveling home. So I think it makes sense. And it definitely makes sense to, have it loaded. It's still in the trunk, but.
I was going to ask a question. Basically, what it boils down to, if it's concealed, leave it concealed. Don't have it out where somebody can see it and jump off the deep end. So if it's going to be concealed and it's concealed law, keep it so. Right? Okay. I know it's a concealed carry law and stuff like that, so that's kind of what I was thinking about. That's kind of what this policy is basically saying. If it's concealed, leave it so, and nobody is any the wiser.
And just so you know, it really came up because they changed the law that parents were allowed to bring their guns on campus now. So then we kind of looked at it, well, if parents are allowed to, it just makes sense to, to some degree to allow, the parents to have it. And I guarantee half the parents in the pickup line probably have them strapped on their hips nowadays. And if you haven't seen the new law, it's even worse. Now they can carry swords on their belts, so.
Any further questions, comments? Now we will have a discussion on procurement of goods and services by Matt Rivera.
Mr. Rivera, if I may, we've, in a cycle of refinement, did a little process change here, so I'm going to turn it over to Matt, but I hope you'll appreciate streamlining. We're going to cover the needed information, but we're going to do it in a way that we collapse 6 items or 7 items that are all related to procurement, which we anticipate will be at every meeting moving forward for some time. And this is probably a more efficient way to cover those items.
Thank you, Dr. Gibson. We didn't need any Paperwork Reduction Act in order to move forward with this plan, but the result is the same. As you could look on the top of page 37, it's procurement of goods and services. I'll just give this introduction this time. At the top, we've got several subjects, beginning with the subject for the 7 solicitations we have tonight. The procurement method, it could be an RFP, or simple request for proposal, or a request for competitive seal proposal if it was a construction project. The cabinet member, who is the requester or the end user, who will be able to provide any details on those specific solicitations, along with our funding. I skipped one thing, probably something very important for our board members. Key bullet statements that tells the main purpose or the function, why and how, what's going on, how we're using our taxpayer dollars. Then the funding source, whether it's bond, EPP, or general operating fund, and then a construction cost estimate or a project estimate, and then when we expect to bring it back to the board for action. And speaking of action, I'm going to turn it over to our man of action tonight, Mr. J.D. Mosley, for the first one. Lead us off.
Thank you, Mr. Rivera. So the purpose of our first solicitation is to provide contractor services to do a district-wide assessment of our emergency radio communications. As a part of the assessment, the contractor will also provide us a preliminary design to address any issues that we may have at our campuses. Just to kind of put this in layman's terms is we know that we walk into some buildings, we lose our cell service. Well, the same thing happens sometimes with emergency radio communications. So that's what we're looking at, is just testing our buildings for emergency radio communications to see if we've got any deficiencies. The funding source here is EPP, the previously approved EPP, and the fiscal impact is estimated at $100,000. And I'll take it over to Dr. Burkhart. Burkholder.
Oh, it's close. It works, JD, whatever.
Hold on one moment. There were no questions. What about, are you working with the SROs and their radios?
Well, the contractor services, they will look at the frequencies that our local services use, all first responders. So our first responders, Cibolo and Schertz, if they're different, they'll use those frequencies. I don't believe they are different because we use the same pieces, but they'll use those frequencies of our first responders to make sure that those frequencies are being picked up inside those buildings. And so, you know, this is a company that has signal meters. They're going to go in all the areas of the buildings and check, you know, do we have service in the basement, up on the 3rd floor, whatever that may look like.
Making sure we're all on the same page. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just to add to that, right before I retired, I know that on the Schertz side, they went in there and tested every school, and they have a map of all the dead spots, and they may already have, I mean,
I'll reach out to them and see if they still have that.
Sergeant Mixon has it.
Super, thank you.
The second item is for the solicitation of security cameras for Jordan Wilder Slaughter and Allison Steele, according to the EPP replacement plan. Any cameras that are removed that are still working, we will repurpose at other campuses that have cameras that are not working. It's an EPP project. The fiscal impact is estimated at approximately $200,000, and we'll bring it back in February to you. The third item is for student devices for DAEP and Byron Steele to be replaced according to the EPP replacement plan. The devices will include laptops, Chromebooks, managed carts, charging carts, and precision desktops. These are high-powered desktops for CTE courses. It's also an EPP project estimated at $1.5 million, and we'll bring it back in February. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ms. Cannon.
Any questions? I see Mr. Finley.
Just for my own information, I haven't seen it. Could I get a copy of that EPP plan that you're talking about there for the replacement DAEP environments? I just want to look at it, just for my own grins. $1.5 million, I know we're on a $5 million project here, but I'm just curious how these items are going to integrate together, and like I said, just my own grins, because that seems like an awful lot of different devices. They're going to have to be integrated across the school. So I'm just kind of curious how we're going to integrate all that, and then where all the how many units we're talking about, the price of each unit, and then the integration thereof. So I'm just curious.
What we can do, Mr. Finley, we'll drill into that layer 3 and take that screenshot and put it in the board update, so then the whole board can see where the 1.5 comes from.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you.
Ms. Cannon?
Yes. The solicitation we have is looking at an enhancement to our current applicant tracking system that helps us with recruiting and hiring. With that, we would like to enhance the software to include employee records for things such as contracts, service records, and transcripts, where employees can, at first hand, access their own records versus having to come through the office, as well as just being able to automate the things that we're doing. Currently, we're still working with contracts, paper copy contracts for about 1,200 employees and having to file those. So this would just enhance what we're doing in the HR office as far as all the employee records that we have. It would be under general operating budget, and the estimated cost is $50,000 to be brought back in February or March of this year.
Secure?
Yes, it would actually just go along with what we currently have as far as our applicant tracking, and it would be an enhancement to that where every employee would have an employee portal that they can access, and it would be secure that they can have access to their own documents, as well as just being more automated with our documents.
And do we have a risk further thinking, worst case scenario, do we have like our risk management will take care of in case it is ever compromised employee information? Like, do we have risk management? Let's just leak information, you know.
Would that go along with technology?
Technology. You know what I'm saying? I think TASB had a leak last year, and a lot of employees were, you know, notified that their information, private information, had been leaked. I'm just saying.
You're talking about money or recovery or?
Yeah, recovery of information. How do we protect ourselves in case the software we utilize is somehow, you know, involved in release of, somebody hacks it? You know what I'm saying? Or are we responsible for it?
Yeah,
or?
we'll let Dr. Burkholder talk about hacking.
So we will, first of all, we'll work with the company to understand what their data privacy policies are and what their process is. That data does not live on our servers. Okay. It lives on their servers, so responsibility ultimately falls with them. But we want to be clear on what those policies are should a breach ever happen, and what their commitment is should they have a breach. So okay. We'll work with them to ensure that we have that information.
Oh, there's a policy in place. Thank you.
Good evening. I have subject E, and this solicitation is for contracted services to perform preventive maintenance as well as other repairs to district administrative and support services vehicles. This is mainly focusing on the white fleet vehicles. These services will supplement work by our shop personnel, allowing them to focus on the vehicles that are assigned for student transportation. Estimated, we're looking at using the general operating fund or budget, and estimated cost $25,000 or up to $50,000 in case of an accident or major repairs.
Mr. Perez, remind the board, we had a question a few months ago or maybe a year ago about white fleet. Give them a quick, what does white fleet mean? What is a white fleet?
Oh, I'm sorry, white fleet. So we use those vehicles for student transportation. A lot of times we use those vehicles for McKinney-Vento students, maybe students that maybe don't have a permanent address and we have to go outside of the district to go pick them up. Or some students that live in this area that have to go outside of the district. Then we also have vehicles that are used for maintenance, for example, warehouse, technology, and other vehicles that can, are used by staff, teachers, for conferences and things like that.
And I saw a little white bus.
Right.
What's that?
So that is a activity bus. It's used by a career and technology department. Allows someone without a CDL to drive that vehicle. And typically they use it for field trips and a lot of times just curricular activities throughout the district.
Thank you.
Next is the solicitation for charter bus services for extracurricular activities at the secondary campuses for 18-19 school year. Charters are used only when school buses are not available due to regular bus routes or when traveling extremely long distances. Traffic, weather, and priority of event are also considered when deciding on charters. These funds are estimated at $100,000 and would come from general operating budget.
Extremely long distances, what is it, 200 miles, 300, what are we talking about?
Typically, an hour and a half is what
Okay.
we're looking at in most cases.
Thanks.
I believe it's also when used with school bus would not be advantageous to what they're doing or where you're going, something like that.
Yes, sir. You know, weather is a big issue in August when talking about volleyball teams and football teams going in 105 and an air-conditioned bus isn't available.
Thank you.
Look at.
Yeah, and the final item is 3 years ago, the board was, had enough foresight to engage with an executive coach for myself. 2 years ago, we expanded that out to our executive leadership team. A year ago, we expanded that out to our executive cabinet, and this coming year, we look to expand it out even further to our Team 1. Studer Education Services has fulfilled that. We're looking at just putting out RFP for those leadership services to see if they or some other group continue. Just a final sentence there, just to kind of summarize it. They assist our leadership with, you do a staff satisfaction survey, you have the data, now what? You know, that can be a hard thing to just, now you got it in your hand and you don't. So they coach us through that, student satisfaction surveys, parent satisfaction surveys. This coming year, they'll help us roll out and have helped us develop a community satisfaction survey, as well as working with the people that we're looking at right here on our key work processes to make sure we're always lean, efficient, and we're meeting our customers' needs. It's an estimate, general operating budget, estimate 50,000, looking at February, March, projected for board action.
There's no further questions. Next, we will have discussion, board consideration and consensus on discussion items eligible for action under a consent agenda. Well, it says Robert Westbrook, but I think Dr. Gibson has provided a list.
Well, yeah, there's a list on page 39, and it may be easier to just say, do you want any one of those to not be considered on this? Page 39.
I would look at any item that's over the $50,000 range. That probably should be brought back as a separate item, if you don't mind. Plus, I know Mr. Finley had a question about some of the
technological devices.
Technology. So, and I know that from the list, that's 2 items that we're looking at putting on, well, 3 items that would be going on the you know what I'm trying to say, the consent agenda. I'm sorry, 3 items that would be going on the consent agenda. It would be item D, E, and G, and then I would suggest have the other items brought back separately.
Okay.
Just my suggestion.
I would concur.
All right, this is just so from my understanding, like the BDA, for example, the bidirectional amplification, let's say we get our proposals in, they come in at $90,000, we would be bringing that back as a separate, as its own independent item to the board in February. However, it would have probably been on the consent agenda because we discussed it tonight. Are we saying that we did not want it on the consent agenda, or am I misunderstanding?
That's my suggestion would be, because it's over the $50,000 range, to have it come back as a separate item
It would be a separate consent agenda item, and the consent could always be pulled out if more discussion,
Well-
for example, like the technology, which is probably going to be over $1 million. They're all good.
I mean, I'm just,
pull them out.
I would, I mean, okay, just, I don't know. I mean, what everybody else,
So-
whatever y'all want, but I'm just,
Just want to be sure I understood, sir, that's all.
I would just say it should be a separate discussion item.
It is tonight.
Well, I mean, at the action item, I mean,
Okay.
separate action.
So
item.
it
So we
base-
could pull it that night on the consent. It could be on the consent agenda, and we could just pull it that.
Yes, that's what
Okay,
Matt
that's
is
fine.
saying. Yeah, that's what Matt
That's
is
fine.
saying.
We'll know how much the dollar amount is, and
Mhm.
we can do it then. Okay.
Yeah, these ordinarily
that.
would have been separate discussion items as we normally do, but
Right.
in order to
No,
to
that's fine.
streamline the process, we can put them all together as
Sure.
a snapshot.
Okay. Yeah, just leave them on the consent agenda, and any item that somebody needs to pull, we pull, just like we always
Matt,
do.
will any of these
Sorry, didn't mean
be
to
eligible
confuse
for
the
buy
discussion.
board, or be something that would be on the buy board?
We're not anticipating any of these to be purchased through the buy board or any
Okay.
board-approved purchasing
Okay,
cooperative.
so they'll come back. You'll see them on consent. Okay.
Any other questions or comments about that? Now we come to action items. Does any board member want to remove some of the consent items for consideration? If not, may I get a motion?
I move the Board of Trustees approve the consent agenda as presented, letters A through H.
Motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed, same right. Motion passes 7-0.
So, as soon as someone gets a page number, would you yell it at?
Which one?
Hold
The
on.
other action items, request for board approval, District of Innovation. Board vote on adoption of local innovation plan presented by Dr. Damon Edwards.
Page 122.
Page 122.
122. Go ahead, Dr. Edwards. Everybody's getting there, but go ahead.
Okay, all right, just wanted to make sure everybody's ready.
Yep.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, members of the board. The District of Innovation concept was passed into law with the 85th legislative session in House Bill 1842, which created Texas Education Code Chapter 12A. The law allows traditional districts to access flexibilities through exemption from certain statutes. To access these flexibilities, a school district must adopt an innovation plan as set forth in Chapter 12A of the Texas Education Agency rules. The process for this was the Board of Trustees, they adopted a resolution, held a public hearing, named a committee to develop a plan. Once that plan was developed, went through a system of refinement, had another opportunity for open meeting, an opportunity for discussion and input. Next steps were to bring it to the board to share that plan, also send a notification to the Commissioner of Education on the board's intent to vote, and post the plan on the district webpage for 30 days, and that's where we find ourselves tonight. So the action item is the administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the local District of Innovation plan as presented.
We have a motion.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the local District of Innovation, DOI plan as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I'm presuming the vote was anonymous. Nobody had a problem. It wasn't open voting like it was when your committee actually voted on the District of Innovation. It was anonymous voting. Everybody there was no coercion.
Yes, sir. We use an electronic system, so the identity of the vote, we don't know whose name or whatever was assigned to that vote. The percentage of approval by the committee was 96%. Approval of the District of Innovation plan, which was shared with several of the members of the committee last month during the discussion item.
We have a motion and second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Request for board approval 2018-2019 school calendar presented by Dr. Damon Edwards.
Yes, sir. Thank you again. The district may not begin instruction for students for a school year prior to the fourth Monday in August unless the district is designated as a district of innovation, which we are now by board approval. That notification will be sent to the commissioner of the vote. The school calendar enables the district staff to establish days of operations and contract days for employees, including time required for staff development and planning, preparation purposes, and continuing education. We have worked with the DIC, District Improvement Committee, to create the proposed 2018-19 calendar. The administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve Calendar D, for the 2018 school year calendar as presented.
Mr. President, I move the Board of Trustees approve the 2018-2019 school calendar D as proposed. Or, I'm sorry, as presented.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I've got one. What's the feeling among the teachers and everybody else that's moving that up a week?
I didn't understand the question.
Moving the start date up a week?
Well, the committee that, the DIC committee is actually comprised by many of the teachers. The feedback that we received was that they appreciated the balancing of the semesters a little bit more. Currently, we have 75 days in the first semester and 99, or so 76 and 99, so it balanced the semester. That was one of the things they appreciated. Also, from the input, this could have been from parent or staff member, because both of them were on the committee. Having the opportunity for school to end by May 30th was also a part of that, but several of the comments had to do, or the feedback had to do with the balancing of the semesters, more instructional time prior to some of the state and national testing. The percentage of recommendation on that was 91% of the DIC recommended option D.
Okay, that's the DIC. That's, I was talking about the population in general. Was any effort made to ask the population in general of teachers?
Yes, sir. The DIC representatives are, 2/3 of that is made up of campus staff. They take that, I'm getting there, they take that back to the campuses to solicit input from them as well. Their recommendation is based on those they represent. So yes, sir, it went back to the campuses. They had a period of time to share the options and the calendar options with them. So yes, sir, it went back to all of the campus staff.
Okay. Has there been any calculation on what this is going to do as far as cost of utilities? They're pushing the thing up a week into August. That's one of our hottest months. Has there been any consideration for that, as far as how much additional expenditure we may have on that?
I don't think we have a specific dollar amount on, on that situation.
I mean, it won't be dollar for dollar, but we'll also shut down in June, and you never know. I mean, June can be mild, to your point, but we'll trade those weeks. We'll probably lose a little on that, but it won't. Yeah, possibly, depending on the year.
I know from what I hear, they're pretty tight on the HVAC.
Well, we'll turn it on.
I don't know that there's going to be a.
We'll turn it on when it's needed. We'll turn it off when it's not.
I don't know that there's going to be a big difference, because they basically the temperature is what it is, and they might be running a little longer, but they're going to shut them down too. I mean, that's just the way it is. Believe me.
I have to ask: is there really a feeling that the extra 5 days up front is going to make a huge difference in our testing scores or anything else? Is there, I mean, I know it's 5 days. Is that 5 days, is there a way to find out on a go-forward basis if those 5 days really make a difference as far as, in other words, we have this year that we have starting on the fourth Monday. Is there a way to find out if those extra 5 days actually translate into better academic scores or better testing scores? Or is that a hoped-for outcome that we're going to move these dates up, this school year up 5 days? Is there a way to correlate or actually say, yes, they made a difference? If it didn't make a difference, then we're just playing with dates. If we can't correlate that moving the 5 days up made a difference, then are we just really playing with the calendar? I'm just asking the question because I don't have an answer for that one. I'm just asking.
Well, our way to measure will be through our district improvement committee. I mean, we do that every year in the sense that we ask.
This is not the district improvement committee. I'm talking about test scores. I'm talking about student outcome, not the DIC.
I think it would be reckless to try to draw a correlation because there could be any number of factors that might change that. And so I just want to manage expectations. I think to try to say, yeah, we'll quantify it to 100% or 80% certainty or even 75% certainty.
And you might be talking about test scores like STAR or something. I'm going to talk as a parent, put my parent hat on right now, who has a secondary student. This last 9 weeks in December was very shortened because of semester exams as well, that last week. So my daughter had a hard time. If you did poorly on one test, there wasn't a lot of time to make that up. I think that just in the semester lookout on just normal 9-week test grades, it's going to help our students' success, especially kids who may get behind at the beginning of the 9 weeks and try to dig themselves out of a hole. They didn't have as much time to dig themselves out of a hole as well. And that was hard for teachers from my understanding as well. It's just because it was such a shortened 9 weeks, and it's only because we try to get that semester in before the end of the year. So I don't necessarily say STAR, but I think in 9-week regular report card grades, I think it will help our secondary students personally.
Well, I would just add to that, what Ms. Dreisbeck is talking about is real. As a parent of a young man who teaches semester classes at one of our high schools, it's going to make a big difference in that first semester. Because there's always been such a, we're talking, 17 days maybe difference between first semester and second semester that they have missed out on when you're teaching government or economics in a semester. First semester students they're just not going to get everywhere. I mean, that they need to go and be ready if they, they're going to graduate, but they're going to be shorted. So this is going to help them regain some of those days they're missing on that front end. And I think the earlier they can get started, the better they are. And again, it will add those days to that first semester. To me, that's a plus. So I don't know that you can quantify that in test scores, but I think what Ms. Dreisbeck said is real. Again, I would just go from the teacher standpoint of when you're teaching a semester class, it's going to make a difference.
So just to clarify, overall, I guess the intent of this is now that we're in district, or we've recommended District of Innovation, then we have the leeway to adjust the calendar. So the test scores are just one factor because of more educational days, but taking that out, there's actually several benefits to this. Is one, and I think you said it divides the semesters up more equally.
Yes, sir.
So you don't have a small first semester and a big second semester of, I think you said almost 20 days difference or 17 days or whatever. So even if the test is taken out of it, at the minimum, it balances out the 2 semesters more equally.
Yes, sir. It also, go ahead.
So that in of itself just makes sense to balance them out. And then second, and I understand exactly what Mr. Finley's saying, and there may or may not be a way to quantify it, but with the additional days at the beginning, at the minimum, they're at least going to get additional instructional days, which we anticipate and we hope will possibly affect the testing, the standardized testing. But at this point, we just don't have a way to quantify it, but that's our goal, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And it also aligns with some of our dual credit opportunities, some of our concurrent credit opportunities at the end of the year by ending the year sooner. Especially some of our juniors and seniors have an opportunity, and maybe even sophomores have an opportunity to take some college credit courses. That was one of the big items on there as well. By obviously moving up the start date, you're moving up the ending date, still meeting the 75,600 minutes that are required by that. So there were several educational benefits out of that based on the calendar, balancing the semesters, more alignment with the having the semester end before the Christmas break to help balancing those semesters, alignment with dual credit, opportunities for credit in the summer at concurrent credit with, or college credit at our partner universities, and we looked at the dates of when those start as well, but several of things that we mentioned in that opportunities that there exist in that as well.
And that would apply to faculty as well. They're attempting to go to college that first semester during the summer.
It could be, yes, sir.
Yeah.
And right now, we're ending on what day, just to verify it? The 7th of June?
Correct.
Currently?
Yeah.
And typically, and if I'm correct, the first semester of most community colleges and colleges start usually the first week of June, correct?
Yes, sir.
So by pushing it back, it does exactly that. It gives them, so there's more benefits than just the anticipated increase from the testing. There's the balance,
Absolutely.
there's the college opportunities, some other things.
Absolutely. Just instruction in general. You know, we always look at the start date changes every year based upon, or it can based upon when the first Monday in August is. For instance, the calendar 2 years ago started on August the 22nd, which is 2 days later than what it would start if we went with this school calendar. So it all depends on where that first Monday in August sits as well, depending on when that start date is going to fall, even in the traditional fourth Monday in August calendar.
Can I ask you a question? Because I know parents have seen this, and the question was asked to me, do we start football, dance, band? How does that all play in? Because there's still UIL rules, you know, of how long does that affect? Because I mean, when they can start, or is it still the same rules that we've always had?
And Coach Lindhoff and Mr. Light can actually I can speak on it, but they can as well, and they're the experts on it.
In that we've discussed this in the band world, it will change up their schedule somewhat that last week. But UIL, while they haven't made any changes yet, they are looking at somewhat changing their rules for marching band, because so many districts, what is it, over half now, have gone to District of Innovation and are starting earlier, so they're looking at adjusting that somewhat to allow to make up some time there.
Yeah. Same thing with UIL. We had a visit with UIL last week and asked if they thought about this, because you lose really a week or 2 days with football. There could be some implications as far as tournaments and kids' absences, possibly with volleyball. They're not looking to give the student high school and Buffaloes any more days of practice. I don't see them really changing that, but you know, around the state, some of your top programs going through the same situation.
Although he did acknowledge that with more and more districts doing DOI, it's probably something that's not going to go away, I think is what he said. We're going to have to probably think about it, continue to think about it.
Right. And I think that, again, we heard from parents, staff members, community members that shared part of the DOI presentation, which was contingent upon passing this, as well as I mentioned, 91% of the District Improvement Committee on the calendar approved that, who represent other teachers, beyond teachers, parents, parents representing parents. All of that came into, and the 91% said there are positives of looking at this calendar.
Any more discussion on the calendar?
I'm just going to, don't mean to belabor the point. The current calendar, traditional start date, according to the calendar, will be 76 days before the Christmas break and 99 days post-Christmas break. The new calendar is going to have 81 versus 94. And if your intention is to balance the semesters, which is what I keep hearing, balance the semesters as far as having a go, then you want to push it up another 8 days. So now we're not talking about the second or the third Monday, we're talking about the second Monday, or possibly even the first Monday. If your goal is to balance the semesters, because your first semester students are getting shortchanged, then you're logically you'd be pushing it up even further. It's kind of interesting that we use Christmas as an artificial essentially into our first semester, if your idea is to balance the days, then even pushing it up a week is not going to make that much of a difference as far as it goes, because you're still going to end up with a back-end loaded second semester unless you plan to push up 2 more weeks to balance even further. So the argument of saying, okay, we're going to push this up a week to try and balance it out, you haven't balanced anything. Not really. What you've done is you pushed up the start day of the year into the 3rd Monday instead of the 4th Monday. You haven't balanced anything. So the first semester kids are still getting shortchanged to some degree. You have pushed up additional 5 days for the testing, but you still haven't balanced the first and second semester. So if that's the argument, then you haven't accomplished your goal. And maybe, granted, I'm belaboring the point at this point in time, but if that's your stated goal, then you haven't gotten there.
Well, and I believe the comment was that more balance is out. The other thing you have to consider in that, Mr. Finley, is the second semester, many of those days are taken by tests. So if you take those days out, you are equaling out that semester a little bit more. I don't think we're ever going to get to, with a start date, it's still flexible, an even number exactly here and exactly there. And actually you can't, because there's 175 days of instruction. So it's not going to ever even out by it's an odd number. So
well, and the issue of, in the olden days, we would come back after Christmas break and go into exams, and teachers hated that. I mean, because they would have to basically start over, review everything over again, and they asked us not to do that. And so that's why we went to I guess you could, call it an arbitrary end of the semester of going before Christmas and let the students get their testing over with. Also, because you have some seniors who graduate in December and go on to college, and that would affect them as well. Now, granted, it's not a great number, but, and Mr. Finley, we're not going to have a perfect system here, but this does allow for some improvement to what we have right now, and that's what we're looking for. So because we're not getting the perfect system, we shouldn't do this? I mean,
no, that's why I go back to, is there a way to prove that this is
5 days. It's 5 days, okay? I mean, that's what it is. So,
like I said, I'm belaboring a dead horse. So
yeah,
We have a motion.
Any more? We have a motion, a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your right hand. All those who oppose, motion passes 6-1. Request for board approval, rezoning of elementary attendance zones effective school year 2018-2019, presented by Mr. Perez and Mr. Pruski.
Good evening, Dr. Gibson, President Westbrook, and members of the board. Before I start, just want to introduce Brent Alexander. He's our demographer, so he's here available for any questions regarding demographics. So this was a discussion item last month. Today brought it back as an action item. As we get ready for the opening of the Rose Garden Replacement Campus, we're on the back end of the step-by-step process. We have now shared this information with a number of committees, staff, and the public, either face-to-face or online. Last night we had our last scheduled public forum at Steele High School. And during the forums, we showed the maps, talked to the public about the rationale behind the changes on the attendance zone. And online, we posted the presentation and then also gathered feedback through the feedback forum. So we gathered feedback face-to-face through the public forums and then online. Last board meeting, we talked about themes, so I really was trying to find a way to come up with some themes from the feedback. Most of the questions and comments were very specific, about their situation. Is my area being impacted by the change? We also got some general comments, thank you comments, great information, that kind of stuff. Transportation questions, we're going to provide transportation for a particular area. We did communicate with 3 parents from the Live Oak Hills area. They were a little bit nervous about the change going from Green Valley to Pasco, mostly because they love Green Valley, and so we are in the process of scheduling a campus tour at Pasco, so that way it helps them with the transition. So, and we're going to do the same with Watts. So that's kind of how we're going to address that. At this point, do you have any questions for me?
Mr. Perez and Mr. Persky, at the last meeting, there was a question, and we kind of got to the point about the boot coming down, if you will, of Watts. And so you guys ran a follow-up report. Can you generalize what those numbers, they were included in last week's board update, but it kind of gets, it's a numerical of what would happen if we did and what would happen if we didn't do that boot.
Right. Basically, if we leave it as is, Rose Garden can support almost all the way up to the next,
it was 24, 25.
24, 25
Right.
before it exceeds capacity.
Right.
And Watts could still sustain up to, I think it was almost 700.
Close to 700.
700 kids.
Which it's designed for 750.
Right.
Okay.
So that's as we're proposing for the rezone.
With the boot
With the
going
boot.
down to grab Red River, okay.
If we moved it and changed it to the scenario of Rose Garden takes basically quote-unquote everything south of 78 and leave Watts alone, Rose Garden would fill up within the next 4 years after opening, and Watts would have
The enrollment would decline.
400 students.
Right.
So it'd be a 1,200 to 400 or 1,100 to 400 or something.
400 swing.
And that was helpful. We appreciate you taking the time to quantify that, because until, and I know it came from the demographer's report, and that's very helpful to extract that and, look at it in that way. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you very much. Other question? You have a motion?
The motion is to approve the map, just FYI, that's on page 128.
Mr. President,
It's on page 127.
I move the Board of Trustees approve the new elementary attendance boundaries effective school year 2018-2019 as presented.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mr. Perez. Well done.
Next, we have a budget amendment number 4, general operating budget, funding for expenditures associated with student placement at JJAEP, presented by Paige Maloney.
Yes, Mr. Westbrook, President Westbrook, Dr. Gibson, members of the board, tonight we're asking the board to do our budget amendment 4 to allocate funds to function 95. We had not used that function in the past 7 years. However, this year we have some needs of students that or a student that we would need to do so. So we're coming tonight with a board budget amendment to move those funds to function 95.
Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve budget amendment number 4 as presented to provide funding for expenditures associated with student placement at JJAEP.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can you just clarify what that acronym, the JJ, stands for?
Juvenile, go ahead.
Juvenile Justice Education
Justice
Program.
Education Program.
So you said individuals. How many students were we talking about?
You know what, I'm going to have to defer to Ms. Che for that. I'm sorry, Dr. Edwards.
Oh, Doctor.
I can answer it too. Right now, we're looking at 1, but obviously we're building a little bit in there. And this would typically be for situations where it may be normally a mandatory placement to DAEP, and if we're having mandatory placements or occurrences that would normally require a mandatory placement, and really repeated offenses of those while at DAEP. So we have severe infractions while a student is at DAEP, and multiple infractions would result. What is our next step? What else, they continue to get assigned more and more days at DAEP. So these are short-term JJAEP assignments for those habitual offenders while in a DAEP setting.
Are we still using Bear County JJAEP?
Yes.
Okay.
Just so I understand the process, and I think I do, is we go to Bear County, how do we actually facilitate the educational process while they're there? I mean, is it a one-on-one teacher that we send? I mean, how does it work?
No, they're students, and they go there and they go through their regular education system, which would typically be multiple students in a classroom.
We just have to fund it?
Yes, sir.
Per student?
These are discretionary placements for us. They would be a mandatory to DAEP, but it wouldn't rise to the level of a mandatory to JJEP. What we're saying is we have limited options once they continue to have those severe behaviors that don't rise to the level of a mandatory JJAEP placement, but multiple occurrences while in DAEP that would normally result in them being placed in DAEP.
Do you need some money in that fund in case we have to make that decision?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Well, so
in case we have to.
Is it still under the auspices of San Antonio ISD, the educational process at JJAEP?
I believe so.
Used to be, I know.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, all right.
And the mandatory placements, the state funds those.
Yes.
And we know now to put something in there.
Just in case. We hope we never use it.
We had a motion, we had a second, we had discussion. All those in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All those opposed, motion passes 7-0. Now we're expected to go to adjourn into closed session at approximately 35 minutes for those who want to wait or need to leave, but the board will now adjourn into closed session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551.074, authorization to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, or to hear a complaint or charge against an officer or employee. We stand adjourned, go to closed session 8:37. Order and reconvene into open session at 9:05. Request for board action, employment of John A. Sipple, elementary principal, presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, the position of the John A. Sipple Elementary School principal is replacing a budgeted position for the 17-18 school year and will be funded from the 17-18 general operating budget.
Do we have a motion?
I move that the Board of Trustees approve the employment of John A. Sipple Elementary Principal for the 2017-18 school year with the name that was presented.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Request for board action, employment of contractual personnel, presented by Linda Cannon.
Yes, the positions on the employment list as presented in closed session are replacing positions for the 17-18 school year and funded from the general operating budget.
Do we have a motion?
I move the Board of Trustees approve the employment list as presented of contractual personnel for the 2017-18 school year.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Motion passes 7-0. Now we have review of board master calendar and a request for future discussion or action items. Mr. Perkins.
Thanks, Mr. President. I have a reminder here that we have the 2018 Winter Governance and Legal Seminar in Galveston. And I have the information on that if anyone is interested. It starts on the Thursday, the 1st of March. There's more details on that. I'm going to test this. I'm waiting for it to open. It may not happen. Folder is empty.
Yeah, it's spinning. So what if we send that out in the board update? Is that all right with everybody? Okay.
Yeah, there are like 4 meetings over the next month though, right? Priscilla? or-
Yeah, just rattle those off, DD and Priscilla.
We have February 12th for your appraisal and budget workshop. The 20th, regular meeting, and we have picked or chosen February 27th for the level 3 grievance.
Yeah, and just to point out, because we've typically done my appraisal by itself, and I appreciate that, we just could not find another night to
Right.
do the budget workshop also. So if we could maybe lead with my appraisal that night and get through that, and
Yes.
then we'll finish up with 30, 45 minutes of budget hour, whatever it takes to have the budget workshop after that.
So the 27th?
Yeah, just say
February
them again. So go start on the 12th and go all the way through again, if you don't mind.
12th for appraisal and budget workshop in February. February 20th is the regular meeting, and February 27th is level 3.
And there's one other important date, and that's the grassroots for TASB, grassroots meeting at Region 20, yeah, Region 20. Is that February 28th? I should know. I should know.
And you will,
We can get it out tomorrow if you don't, Priscilla will.
It's grassroots meetings.
Priscilla will get it out tomorrow. We'll get the grass.
Yeah, it's one where you actually elect the legislative advocate, I think.
I did it 2 years ago.
2 years ago she did it, so.
and we will be getting the appraisal instrument out to the board probably no later than next Wednesday afternoon, late afternoon, and the link to the appraisal instrument online for you to complete. We'll give you about a week, and then we'll close it out. I guess that would have been January 30th or 31st. Give Mr. Westbrook a few days to review prior to the meeting on Monday, the 12th. Right, yeah, Monday the 12th.
Also, a reminder that the Tri-County Luncheon will be on the second Tuesday, and the Chamber Luncheon, Church Cibolo, Selma area, will be on the same day as our board meeting on the 20th. And there's a Northeast Partnership meeting also, it's probably the same week as the Tri-County Chamber.
Let me, just one other thing, Dee Dee, I don't know if we've gotten this, we hardly ever do, but MASBA, Mexican American School Board Association, they're actually having their annual conference on February 23rd, 24th, and 25th. San Antonio, sorry, yeah. Airport Hilton in San Antonio. Do we usually get those flyers, Dee Dee, or it just seems like we get bypassed?
And we did,
But we can request to get on their mail list.
Okay.
but when we went to XG Governance, what was that, 2 years ago? I think one of the themes was that we should wind up going to events that were outside of our sort of norm, MASBA events in particular. So I don't know if we can, some members would go. We probably need to go send somebody.
So give the acronym
What?
so Priscilla can pull it up tomorrow. MA.
MASBA, Mexican American School Board Association.
We'll look that up and get some information out to the board.
And it's, do you think it's this month, right? February?
Yeah, let's give the
Coming
dates.
up.
February, what did I say, 23rd and 24th, 25th, and it's in San Antonio.
Okay. We'll find it and send it out.
That's enough for February.
Yeah, that's a lot. Well, let me just throw one on there. So February the 13th is the Education Day for SCUC with the Chamber Leadership Core group that, you know, some of you have participated. So if you want to be here at 8 a.m. that morning, we're just going to do a Greek coffee and it lets you introduce yourself to the participants for this year. So February 13th, 8 a.m. coffee, and then we will do the training with them, and we'll do the, you're exactly right. And that would be a good, so it'd be good from 8 to 8:30 if some trustees could be there, that would be nice. Then take them on a district tour, or wind up at one of our bistros and feed them lunch, talk about the district.
And February 14th is Valentine's Day, and I now have a gift for my wife.
And you said that on camera.
Yeah.
If there's nothing more, we'll adjourn 9:13, if there's no objection.